I don't think so.
We want to know about that, and then when you get done, we'll let you show some of the.
Today is Monday, March 10, 2003, and this is the beginning of an interview with Harold Harden. He is 78 years old, having been born on July 24th of 1924. This interview is taking place at Joe Wilson's history classroom at the Rock Creek High School, St. George, Kansas. My name is Joylyn Presley, and I will be the interviewer. Mr. Harden, could you state for record what war and branch of service you served in?
What war? And
Gonna have to get me to thinking here.
can I answer?
Go ahead.
World War II, and he served in
Georgia.
When did you serve?
Well, really,
When did you enter the service? You
Drafted.
You were drafted. Did you finish high school already?
No.
So, right out of high school?
No, I got 2 years in high school, but I had to get out of the school on account of my dad. Was all
crippled at the time.
crippled up and one thing and another.
You working on the farm?
I was working on the farm. He hated to leave everybody. And it's like any new experience. You've got to tell
I know that, but I'm trying to think. The question they asked me has been years ago.
Leavenworth, Kansas.
And I got sent home for 2 weeks.
Went back to the service.
Work.
Then we left Leavenworth, and I took and after I left there, I Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and from Fort Sill, Oklahoma to the port of embarkation.
Running 5 miles a day with how many pounds of weight on your backpack?
I said I took my basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky, Arkansas. And I don't remember how. Then I left there and went to.
When you were training in the tanks, were you trained as a drive?
Tank. And I left. When I left there, I went to Camp Chaffee, Arkansas.
How many guns and what kind of guns were on the tanks?
What kind?
And how many?
37 pea shooters mounted on the turret.
One machine gun?
No, had a 30 caliber inside the tanks and a 50 caliber
On the side.
on the top.
How many people fit in one of these tanks?
4.
How can you have a machine gun inside the tank?
No, 30 caliber in the machine.
Shot through
Up
a.
to the sides, the holes,
Wouldn't it be noisy in the tank?
Pardon?
Wouldn't it be noisy with a gun going, machine gun?
Oh,
going
yeah.
off?
Shoot the projectile to fly out. It's hot.
Did you have a larger gun that sticks out in front of the tank?
Yes. Yes.
You don't remember what it was called?
Man.
Load the gun and stuff. And how do you load one of the big guns?
How you load them?
Did one of your people have to be a gun loader?
No, that was me.
You were.
He was the gunner.
Pick it up and shove it in the
nozzle.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of sights did you have?
Well, the elevation and everything. All depends on your yardage and one thing and another, how far you thought it was or your command was, and that's what you go from there.
You just estimate it?
Estimate.
What was your favorite?
So after he give you the command on one thing or another and the yardage where you had thought it was in your scope, and wherever it landed, he would pick it up and go from there.
What was your favorite thing working on tanks?
You liked the driving, didn't you?
Hmm?
You liked the driving of the tanks, didn't you?
Oh, yes and no.
Kind of like school, yeah.
Oh. You drive by like a caterpillar
Levers.
with brakes.
And they had 2 transmissions for your high and low road.
Just two gears is all?
2 gears.
You have foot pedals too?
Oh, yes.
One was for speed.
One was for your left and right deal.
Oh.
Yeah.
And what'd your levers do?
Yeah, that you used them too.
Also.
It all depends.
How fast did the tanks go?
How fast? It all depends from 40 to 50 mile an hour.
Did you ever go overseas with the tanks, driving tanks?
Yes.
You went to New York for embarkation?
Yeah, went to New York for the embarkation. Then
to
out at sea.
By boat to England.
Huh?
By boat to England.
Queen Mary.
Did you have a tank assigned to you at that time, and it
No,
went with you on the
got
ship?
that after we got overseas.
They landed in Manchester, England,
Yeah.
and they were there for just a little while to get their orders. And then they crossed the channel, English Channel, and landed in France.
This was
And this is right at the border of the war. The place he landed had already been bombed and shot up. And so then they were assigned their tanks and assigned their destination to...
That was in
over the
La Havre.
Rhine River.
Was this after D-Day?
you landed in France before D-Day?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. They had it at one time, from what, as a civilian, we were waiting for the news to come out and say that they started the invasion into Germany.
Right.
So he was one of them that was in the invasion that went into Germany over the Rhine River. Meanwhile, there's mortar shells coming from the Germans
That's where I was hit, on the Rhine River.
where his tank was blew up. Blew him out, and he laid by the tank, cold in March, muddy and snow, until the medics came. And they picked him up just like you see him pick up gurney things and take off running with them, and then they pay him and flatten themselves out too. And they pick him up and run again a little ways till they got to the medical truck.
Did you drive a tank from the coast of France into Germany?
No.
Where did you start with the tank then?
Boy.
She said, did he drive it? He didn't drive it, but they did leave.
Well,
France.
riding or driving. I'm
Right,
trying to-
uh-huh.
Did you get in the tank at the coast of France and go across all France and
Well,
into Germany or
Get into Belgium,
Belgium?
right.
And you remember what your tank unit was?
786.
Huh?
786.
Yeah. 786 tank battalion.
About how many tanks are we talking about?
All depends on how many platoons you went into. All right, which was 5.
Was these Pattons?
General Patton? You weren't a part of General Patton's.
No.
Were you on the bridge when the tank got hit?
You said crossing the Rhine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't worry about bridges. If the Rhine was little enough, they could just took over.
Were you able to drive across the Rhine in the water?
Yes. Yes. We switched back and forth, the gunner and the driver.
And see, there were other battalions of other war regiments that was there. That was beside them, the infantry and all them.
The reason for that is through the basic training.
Does a tank go underwater?
Mm-hmm.
It'll go in 5 feet of water?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you get hit when you got across?
Being what?
Did you get hit when you got across the Rhine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you receive the Purple Heart were you injured when you got hit? Were you injured?
Yes, it's right there. The,
Oh,
your
this?
Purple Heart, yes. You know, your Purple Heart. Where do you want to back it up? We had a piece of shrapnel, but I don't think it's showing the ground.
Did you end up in the hospital?
Well, did you end up in a hospital during?
In the hospital?
Yes.
Yes. When I was wounded, they picked me up and runaways. There's land of Raja in this town. And they'd run with me and drop me when they was trying to take this town over.
And then they
Done?
did take him to a hospital in France. And there's where they done the surgery. Removed the shrapnel and
Yeah, the shrapnel, I have got it all in my face here.
still has some, yeah.
In my elbow, 7 pieces yet. Hit from here
Hold
on
up
up.
that little plastic bag. I don't think she can see it. No, the little plastic bag.
Where'd you at?
Right there.
That's shrapnel.
Yeah, I don't know how you can, it's just a piece of metal that was blown out of the tank
Do you know
that
what
they gave
shrapnel
him.
is?
that they gave him
What
as
type of
souvenirs.
metal did they use? Type of shrapnel.
Got it? And one of the things that he's not said, and I've not heard the kids ask, is on the dog tags, the way I understand it is if one of the people die, when the GIs get killed, they take they take one dog tag, and the other one they put in his mouth, props his teeth open, and then when they come in to clean up later, well, then they know who this guy was.
On
You
the,
kids want to see the shrapnel that didn't come in earlier?
on the dog tags, what do they say on them? What's the information on the dog tags?
What did you do? What?
What's the information that's on the dog tags?
Has your name on the dog tag
Uh-huh.
and your number.
Can't remember no number.
Yeah, your service number is on there.
Yeah.
And type of blood, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right.
How long were you in the hospital?
Oh boy. When they got me back to Paris, well, when I got wounded, they picked me up and left the Atlanta barrage on this town. We would run and fall until we got a foxhole. And I was in the foxhole for a while. And after I got out of the foxhole, well, back in behind the line was the first aid station. Then from there, they put me in a meat wagon. You know what I mean by meat wagon?
No, you don't.
Ambulance. And then after I got where the train line was, they put me aboard on a flatbed train and take me back to where I was wounded in one thing or another. But it seemed like for days. It's snowing, cold, laying out there on the ground. Even when they got me back to Paris, we had to lay outside on account of there was so many wounded at the time. And finally I got inside. Then I left there and they shipped me back to England. Then from England to Scotland. From Scotland back home. Flew me back.
After you were injured, did you go straight back into war, or did you?
Yeah.
After you were injured, did you drop out of the service, or did you stay in?
No.
You got out, you was discharged.
Well, I wasn't discharged till
She asked, did
I
you?
know.
Okay, whether you got out or you stayed in. You got out as soon as they'd released you.
Yeah, I got out December the 8th, 1945.
From Colorado.
Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
So then what have you done with your life since? You've been able to work?
Not at the time. When they got me back to the United States, and I was in Brigham City, Utah, and this major said, "We've got to send you home." So that what they done there, I can forget, it seemed like it was a month. I was supposed to come back home and get used to the noise, which I couldn't take. No. And so I turned around and went back to Brigham City, Utah. And the major said, "You've got to go. You've got to go again." I said, "No, I don't." But they did send me back. And I had to get around where a lot of noise was, which I couldn't take.
You could not take
No.
just the normal noise of traffic?
Seeing people out walking around and everything. Oh, boy, no, I couldn't do it.
This was an after effect of
Right,
war.
right. When I got back to Topeka, I can remember the guards standing out there He was on guard duty, walking back and forth.
in Fordsville.
And I can just remember, no, you can't have that gun. I'm taking it. Yeah.
It's bothered you at night also?
Mhm.
Well, how many years?
Oh boy, I don't even know.
Probably about at least good 3.
Oh, it's just a noise and everything I couldn't take.
Finally, you were able to move on to.
Gradually, yes, but a long, long time.
Mrs. Harden, you had to help him through this time, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Because he got back in December and we got married in January. The following January. And so there was some, we'd been through some rough times. If he'd get a job and something would disturb him or how, you know, if you can't do a man's job and do it right, you're out of there. He'd either quit or they'd say, well, I can't use you to calm down more or something like that. But and outside of his hearing, oh Lord, I'd hate to see how many hearing aids we got. And finally he went to the VA in Topeka. And they give them to you free, you know, and this is what it's all about. That's what it's there for. But we didn't realize that or check into it till we did then. And even now he gets some medication from the VA.
So what kind of work did you do around that time? Now
As you recovered,
Little by little.
so what kind of work have you done?
Well, let's see.
You drove cab for a while.
Yeah.
You went to the Goodyear or whatever it was tire station and fixed flat tires for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you worked at Armco Steel
Right.
for quite a few years. And that was making corrugated pipes, steel pipes. And so that didn't seem like gradually he
can you show us some of the stuff that you bought?
This is the discharge paper.
You want to take him out of there?
Yeah, that's.
And copies. He has to carry a copy of his discharge with him all the time, too, even to this day. Let's get to the pictures.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
And he had, this is what they call a VE envelope.
Right.
We'd write him a letter, and it would he'd get it in this condition. It was all, they'd get it down to where it was like that. This is one that, a friend of his, Ted Mitchell, sent.
You don't remember that.
Do ya? And they'd get to write free up here in the corner, so they didn't have to pay
No
for
postage.
it. Yeah. Which was only about 3 cents at that time. But and if there was anything in there that said like where he was or something, then they had it blotted out, blackened out.
Censured.
Uh-huh. Sure was. A lot of it.
This is some of our tanks and one thing or another here. There's more of them.
But now the tanks that they have that we see
Oh,
on TV
today it's altogether
are
different
so
from what we had.
sophisticated and streamlined compared to the ones that he had. You know, it's just watching the news. We just sit there now.
Did you feel like the Germans had a better tank than we did?
Yes, definitely.
They're really, really afraid to go up against them one-on-one.
Yep. Oh, yes. They had a lot better tanks than we had.
Okay.
Oh, this is when we was getting ready to go overseas. We had to turn all the equipment back in.
Equipment you trained with, you turned it back in, and then
Right.
See, they did get leisure times. They'd lay out on the rocks.
That's when we had to go out and let the artillery, infantry sign in on us and one thing and another, so.
Some of these buddies, probably his sarge. He thought a lot of his sergeant. And this is just the dust from the tanks kicking up as they're going down the road. Here he is with a buddy back in the United States at one of the dime stores. And did the other kids want to?
dime store picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you go sit in there and put in a quarter, real pictures.
And before we went overseas, this is the ammo cartridge that we shot up for practice and one thing and another.
You had to carry ammunition inside your tank,
Oh, yes.
and then how did you get more? You had to resupply.
Well, on the side of the tank where you picked a lot of your ammo up, which was 75s, 105s, 30 caliber. Yeah.
Carried gasoline too.
2 tanks. Yeah.
It was always crucial that you could get refueled and
Oh, yes.
get more information.
Something you kids haven't asked is, what did they have to eat?
I can remember the first day that we moved out to go in action. Oh, brother. Scared to death.
They got what
You were
they
scared.
called cave rations, and everything was in tin cans, and they were the military color, the khaki color, like the cap he's got in the jacket. And so whatever you open, that's what you ate, whenever. No time for cooking.
Did you have a indoor bathroom in the tank?
Yeah, you sure did.
All GIs, they did what they wanted to do wherever it was, they had to do it.
Any questions?
Why do you have to carry around discharge papers at all times?
Oh, in case that, oh, a lot of times when he was hunting for work and wanting a job, they'd have to show him his discharge papers. And he just automatically, he's got it in his billfold and carries it all the time now anyway. He doesn't have to, but then when he first came out, and he was home for a furlough, and of course he always had to wear his uniform and always had to have his leave papers with him.
Josh Hazlett to the office to leave, please. Josh Hazlett, please come to the office to leave.
I'd like to ask another question. Are you ready for a question? Were you happy to fight in the tank as opposed to being an infantry soldier outside the tank?
I don't know if you'd be happy or not, but...
Would you choose again to fight in the tank, or would you choose some other?
Do what?
Would you choose to be in the tank corps again, or would you choose to be a foot soldier?
Well, you didn't have no choice at that time.
I see.
They put you where they wanted you. Yeah.
What was your favorite thing about being in the war?
Getting to come home on leave.
Yeah, that's right.
Where were you when the war ended? You were home by then?
Let's see.
They'd given you a 90-day furlough, and yeah, we were down on Main Street in Topeka when we heard it on the radio here. And so everybody ganged down Kansas Avenue. It was just packed.
You're talking about Topeka.
Right, talking
Yeah.
about Topeka.
When the news of the war ending came?
Yeah.
This
it
Europe
was
or Japan?
Europe.
Europe.
Yeah.
And what
And
happened?
Japan, too.
VJ Day and VE Day.
Right,
And so you were in Topeka VE Day.
right.
Yeah,
Well, we
see,
were down there
it
for
wasn't
Big J Day,
ended
too.
over in the CBI.
That's China, Burma, and India.
Right. So therefore, when we got our war over with, they sent some of us over to CBI.
In Topeka, when the news of the war ended, this Main Street just...
All hell broke loose.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, they let everything go. No, couple
MPs all over.
smoke
Yeah.
coming out of houses where somebody had something cooking and forgot to turn the fire off, and it was a very, very joyous occasion.
Thank you.
You're sure welcome. And when he got discharged, well, he
Well, you know, armed guard, that'll mean guarding the factory stateside or something. But anyway, the Hobbs lost 11 crew and 1 armed guard, and the Minot Victory, she was only damaged April the 12th, and the Donald McClay was damaged April the 10th, May the 20th by a kamikaze. On May the 18th, the Cornelius Vanderbilt was bombed and 1 crew lost. May the 24th, the William B. Allison was damaged by a torpedo, 6 crew lost. And on May the 23rd, the Brown Victory was damaged by kamikaze. Now, the Canada Victory was also sank that when we were stateside and getting our load that for Okinawa, that every place we tied up, they said, oh boy, you know, another victory. That was when the victories were fairly new. And another victory, you know, the last ship that was tied up here was a victory, the Canada Victory. So that was several ports in the United States. Then we went to Saipan, and they said, you know, you're tied up here the same place the Canada Victory was. Then we went to waiting, we didn't, oh, in Saipan then, the battle for Iwo Jima, one of the big battles, you know, that was where they raised the flag, I think. But anyway, that was February the 19th, 1945. And I was on Saipan at that time, and so we passed around a petition. Everybody signed it, including the captain on down, that to feeling ran high at the time. We volunteered to take our ship and use it in any manner that we could. And if failing that, to give us all rifles, and we would do what we could. Well, I signed the thing, but knew darn well they would take us up on it. But they had other plans for us. They didn't know, we didn't know what. So that was when we went then from Saipan to Eniwetok, and they said, boy, you know, you're anchored here just about the same place the Canada victory was. And then still waiting and not knowing what we were doing, but we were moved to Ulithi, waiting for the Okinawa invasion. Of course, we didn't know. But they said, oh boy, you know, you're anchored here just about the same place the Canada victory was. So then when we moved on to Okinawa, and it must have been then when we were transferred around to Purple Beach, and we dropped anchor, and they said, boy, you know, the Canada victory is anchored here about the same place yesterday, but they sank her yesterday. Anyway, the Canada was sank I didn't put the date down. But anyway, the Canada was, that's been 56 years ago. Oh yeah, she was sunk April the 27th. And one crew lost and 2 of the armed guard. And
all of these victory ships had a name like Canada or
well,
some other.
The victory, the Liberty ships were all named after people. Like on the victories, or the Liberties that I've sailed or worked on, was the Thomas Jefferson, the Walt Whitman, and the Amy Lowell. And somebody said, "What do you do? Pick them by their name?" But and the victory ships were named after cities, like the Skagway, Alaska, and I don't think there's ever a Topeka, but there's merchant ship. The victories were named after, like sailed. I've worked on the St. Petersburg victory, also that named after St. Petersburg, Florida.
Was any ship that you were on ever really attacked by a submarine or by an airplane? Or
no, the closest it came was at Okinawa. That we had put up a smoke screen, that is, had smoke bombs and put the smoke so that the vision was obscured. Well, this one boy, Deputy Cosmetazi, had come in low and condition yellow from the battleship close by. Condition yellow, fire only if attacked. And we could hear this boy coming in, and the armed guard told the gunnery officer, who was a high school principal from Kentucky, I'm sorry, he's a high school principal from Oklahoma, you know, we're being directly attacked, let's fire at him. The gunnery officer said no, said condition yellow, and all the time we could hear this guy coming in. Condition yellow, fire only if directly attacked. Well, what do you think this is? And about that time, he went over and missed us about 15 foot. And at that same instant, condition red, fire at anything that moves, but he was gone. That also, one night, this boy came in high, and the battleship, and you can't believe the firepower that a battleship has. You know, it just looks like a curtain raising from it, the firepower. That this boy had come in high, and he was diving, and the battleship and a cruiser nearby were sending up fire, and how he was living through it, I can't imagine. But the high school principal, the armed guard, and the gunnery officer, who was a hillbilly from Tennessee, were up on the bridge, and the hillbilly took a plug of tobacco out of his pocket and took a chaw and handed it over to the high school principal and said, you see that ship up there? The high school principal took a chaw of tobacco and he spit over the side and said, yeah. I said, looks like he's a diving on somebody. Spit over the side, kind of hope it ain't us. But any other questions, Billy?
Kamikaze is, that's suicide.
That's
pilots.
a suicide pilot.
Their purpose was to fly their airplane into the ship and die.
Yes.
And they caused a lot of damage. You had several close calls with them, didn't you?
Yes. That was, and see, I think Kamikaze is probably translated as divine wind.
I think you're right, sir.
The Navy Guards. Yes, that now on the merchant seamen were quite comfortably situated. We had a small cabin with 4 bunks and a desk and lockers, whereas the Navy had one large common room with fold-down bunks, and so that to get any space, they would fold up their bunks during the day, and I suppose they were on watch constantly, of course, as the merchant seamen were. So I suppose the ones on watch just had to sleep through whatever was happening. That one of the armed guard had been a professional drummer, so he had brought a pad, a rubber pad, and he would, you know, practice his drumming on this rubber pad.
So how many years were you serving from the time?
How many years?
44 to when did you get out?
Well, actually 51, but then that wasn't all the sailing because I was in college in K-State. Should have worn a K-State t-shirt, but I thought this is more appropriate for the day. Now, took me 3.5 years to get through K-State. So, but I was always known as the guy that's been in 3 wars trying to keep out of one. Because while I didn't serve during wartime in the Atlantic, that I'd gone down to Chile and we picked up a load of nitrate. You know, the same stuff that they used to blow up the building, the federal building in Oklahoma City. And we had a shipload of it. And so the captain said, look, boys, you know, I know a little bit about chemistry. I know this stuff will explode. I don't know how to make it explode, but I know that it will explode. Everything is there. And we said, okay. He said, if it will explode, where's our $10 a month bonus for carrying explosives? I don't care about that. He said, this stuff will explode. Well, at the time, we didn't know how to make it explode. Then 2 years later, there's a ship loaded at Texas City, and it did blow. And I think it leveled everything for 5 blocks around. It was explosive. But now then, we know how to make it explode. And you just mix it with diesel oil or something, and then set it off with a charge, and it will explode. So they use that now for rock quarries and everything. but at the time, we didn't know how to make it explode. We'd take a handful of it, you know, we hit it with a hammer, it wouldn't explode. You know, we'd try to burn it, it wouldn't burn. We tried every way we could think of to try to make the thing explode, but we never thought of mixing a little oil in it, and that will set it off. But so we unloaded that nitrate then in France, and so I had the opportunity then. I have ridden the train, express train. She'd do 90 miles an hour from Le Havre to Paris, and I could see the war-torn fields and stuff to the side on the. So I saw not war, but I saw the effects of war there. But then I sailed to Amy Lowell, which here we took a load of trotting. This is another spearhead jump. She was going already headed for out to sea. I cast off and was headed out for sea, and she needed another hand, and so I took her and went to unloaded at Venice, Italy. But and I can't remember the name of the town, but we put in one of the towns in port towns in Italy, and everything for a mile back from the shore was almost completely demolished. No house had a full roof on it, and people were living there. They had to live somewhere, so they'd patched up those quarters and were living in them. So there again, while I didn't see any actual combat or anything there, I was able to observe the effects of war.
Mr. Maskell, as a merchant seaman, sounds like you would make a trip, round trip with a ship. When you get back into shore, then you voluntarily signed on to another ship, or were you?
Yes. I have a poster that this guy got his sea bag over your shoulder, and determined look on his face, and he said, "You bet I'm going back to sea." Now you mentioned then when we signed off and paid always paid in cash, and then we were on our own. Contrast to the Navy, you know, the Navy would had their clothes furnished. We got room and board, of course, but the Navy had their clothes furnished, and when they were given leave of absence, their pay went right on. In contrast with merchant seamen, once you signed off and got your pay, that was it. You were on your own, no more pay until you signed on another ship.
What did you do after all this ocean going as a?
Well,
when you come back to Kansas then?
A couple of times I came back to Kansas. In '46, I was on the Petersburg Victory then, I think, and there's a general strike and I was at Portland, and I didn't go back to sea, although it seems like I did. That's been years ago, and because we had put on 1 million board foot of lumber on her, and I have some memory of getting it unloaded, so I must have sailed further.
I'm trying to ask what you have done after your service on the sea.
And what I did?
Yeah.
Well,
You're called it.
Okay, I went back to college, and then I came back after the Korean conflict, and wrote for a short time for the Kansas City Star, and then had the opportunity to work for Drover's Telegram, which was a livestock newspaper. We covered the markets when Kansas City had a stockyard, and it was a good daily newspaper. It was the only daily newspaper that the Amish or the Mennonites were allowed to read, because never in anything in the Drover's Telegram would disturb their sensitivities.
What else did you do? You were a journalist then.
Hmm?
You were a journalist for the newspaper.
Yes. Then I worked there at Drover's for a few years, and then returned to Westmoreland. My wife's family, her grandfather had bought into the Westmoreland Recorder, the Great Moreland Religious News Weekly, as he always referred to it. Had bought into it in 1885, and so it was still in the newspaper then in the early 50s, when I was working for Drover's Telegram, then returned to Westmoreland and edited the Westmoreland Recorder for 27 years. Of course, edited, that means you do everything, linotype operator, makeup, whatever. Then we had two children, Craig and Debbie, that actually, the weekly newspaper editor is more or less the obituary editor. And so Craig then was the son of obituary editor.
Well, we'll end with that joke, Dr. Maskell. Thank you very much for your coming in to do this interview.
Okay.